It's only a matter of time. That's the message Moscow wants the world to accept about Pokrovsk. Russian state media claim the city is encircled, urging Ukrainian troops to surrender or be wiped out. It's a psychological operation designed to portray the city's fall as inevitable. Yet despite the grim headlines, the fall of Pokrovsk is far from certain. The city remains under heavy pressure, but it is not surrounded. Ukraine has countered the Kremlin's narrative with evidence that fighting continues on multiple fronts, proving that claims of total encirclement are fiction. Recent coverage has added to the confusion. Several international outlets reported that Russian forces were tightening their grip and pushing deeper into Pokrovsk's outskirts. These stories often drew on battlefield maps marking new Russian positions in grey, zones of active combat, not conquered ground. Grey denotes contested territory, not occupation. And that's the reality Ukraine is emphasizing. The Kremlin's version is simple. Pokrovsk is doomed. It insists that Ukrainian defenders are trapped and that Russian troops are closing in from all sides. Yesterday, Russian statements even told Ukrainian soldiers in Pokrovsk and Kupiansk to surrender now or die later. The threat was echoed across several state outlets, but propaganda thrives in the space between fear and fact, and Ukraine has been quick to fill that space with its own proof. Even Ukrainian soldiers acknowledge the fighting is fierce. Sergeant Liana Kononchuk, serving with a unit defending the city, admitted, "The situation is difficult. We are trying to control it, but unfortunately, it has only been getting worse lately." Her words capture the intensity of the front. Yet she also noted that Russia's advance isn't a sweeping offensive, it's a slow seep. "As of now, there is no permanent line of defense," she explained. The enemy seeps northwards by 1, 2, 3 units at a time, trying to erode the front line. That creeping method, small infiltration squads instead of large waves, underpins Russia's new seep strategy. But while Moscow calls it an encirclement, Ukrainian officials describe something else entirely: infiltration without dominance. Ukraine's commander-in-chief, Oleksandr Syrsky, dismissed Russia's declarations outright. He said that claims of full encirclement do not correspond with reality. According to him, Russian infantry avoid direct clashes, hide among civilians, and shift positions constantly. The primary task, Syrsky explained, is to detect and destroy them. It's a war fought house to house, with localized skirmishes rather than sustained territorial control. Open source intelligence supports his view. Imagery and verified footage show that Russian incursions inside Pokrovsk consist mostly of small groups moving under urban cover. When Russia planted a flag on the city's western outskirts in late October, it was purely symbolic and did not reflect control over the area. A handful of soldiers raised the flag, took photographs, and withdrew before Ukrainian drones struck back. A Ukrainian drone operator known by the call sign Sonic, serving with the Dovbush Hornets strike UAV unit, offered a ground-level view. "There's no full encirclement, neither in Mirnohrad nor in Pokrovsk," he told reporters. "Unfortunately, fighting is ongoing in both places. The enemy is present, moving in, and now in rather large groups." His comments underline a key truth. The situation is serious, but not catastrophic. Sonic also observed that Russia's tactics have changed. Gone are the reckless human wave assaults that defined earlier battles such as Bakhmut. In Pokrovsk, Moscow sends small, inexperienced units forward, many on short-term contracts. He estimated that around 80% are ordinary infantrymen with no prior combat experience. They move cautiously under remote command, often directed from outside the city. When detected, they're easy targets for Ukrainian drones. "Some experienced units are present," he added, "but they are few." Ukraine's military command insists the city remains connected to its supply routes and operational networks. Today, the General Staff reaffirmed, "There is no encirclement of our units and divisions." Active resistance continues against Russian infiltration groups. Behind the scenes, Ukraine has restructured its defense of Pokrovsk. According to Ukrainian media, the army has formed specialized search and rescue teams and mixed operations groups combining special forces, National Guard units, and Defense Ministry detachments. Their task: to track and eliminate Russian infiltration cells, extract trapped personnel, and reinforce critical points throughout the city. the numbers tell a story of close-quarters combat. In the 24 hours before November 5th, Ukrainian forces reportedly killed 26 Russian soldiers, wounded 64, and destroyed nearly 60 Russian shelters around Pokrovsk. Over the preceding 3 days, Russian casualties reached 249, including 159 confirmed dead. Several vehicles, drone hubs, and armored units were also destroyed. These figures reveal that even the so-called seep strategy is proving costly for Russia. Each infiltration attempt consumes manpower at an unsustainable rate. If the city were truly surrounded, Russian forces would be advancing from all directions. Instead, small groups take losses and often lack reinforcement. Ukraine's defense has also been bolstered by elite units. The Guardian reported earlier this month that special operations teams had entered Pokrovsk to reinforce the defense. At the time, roughly 200 Russian soldiers were estimated to be inside the city. Within days, many were neutralized during counter-assaults that reclaimed several key buildings.
Ukrainian troops have successfully launched a counterattack against Russian forces in the east.
Among those victories was a symbolic one, the retaking of the Pokrovsk City Council building. Ukraine's 425th Separate Assault Regiment led the operation, raising the national flag once more above the site. The unit's commander, known as Fighter, described how one wounded soldier refused evacuation. He reached the target and raised the flag. The act became a morale boost for the troops still holding the line. Reports from Ukrinform confirmed that Ukrainian intelligence units have joined the city's defense, while reinforcements continue to arrive. Ukraine expects harder fighting ahead, but the essential point remains: Pokrovsk is not surrounded. President Volodymyr Zelensky underscored this on November 3rd, stating that about 300 Russian soldiers were inside the city, but none had made significant progress. In Kupiansk, another hotspot of Russian propaganda, only 60 enemy troops were confirmed. These are infiltration elements, not occupying forces. They have a psychological impact, but lack control. Strategically, Pokrovsk matters enormously. It is one of Donetsk's most critical cities. Since Avdiivka fell in February 2024, Putin has made Pokrovsk his next major target. For more than a year, Russian forces have thrown wave after wave at it and failed. If Pokrovsk were to fall, Ukraine's defensive network in the region, the so-called fortress belt, would come under immediate strain. Analysts describe Pokrovsk as the gatekeeper to that belt. Cities like Myrnohrad, Druzhkivka, Kramatorsk, and Slovyansk. Should Pokrovsk collapse, defending Myrnohrad would become almost impossible, and the rest of Donetsk's chain could face heavy pressure. The city is also a vital logistical hub, keeping supply corridors open to the front lines that have held Russia back for nearly 2 years. But even if Pokrovsk were lost, the defense of Donetsk would not end. Ukraine's army has secondary lines ready, fortified, mined, and heavily trapped. The Institute for the Study of War notes that Russia lacks the strength to encircle or overrun the entire fortress belt quickly. Any advance would be slow and costly. That's the paradox of Russia's position. Each limited success comes at immense cost. For every meter gained, Moscow loses more men and machines than it can replace. Ukrainian soldiers admit the logistics are tightening. Several note that access routes into Pokrovsk have narrowed to 1 or 2 corridors, one of them constantly shelled. Drone operators describe relentless air attacks, while France 24 reports that Ukraine's adaptation to Russia's infiltration tactics is ongoing. Still, Kyiv's forces continue to adjust. Reinforcements and special units are adapting in real time to counter these seeping incursions. His words capture Pokrovsk's reality. Technology helps, but human endurance defines the defense. Analysts caution against calling Pokrovsk's fall premature. Even if the city were eventually lost, it would not mark a decisive victory for Moscow. The independent Sam Kiley noted that Ukraine has spent months preparing terrain behind the front lines, trenches, tank traps, and hidden bunkers ready to turn any Russian advance into another drawn-out siege. Kiley described the next phase as another session in the meat grinder. This may explain the quiet confidence behind Ukraine's response. For now, Pokrovsk holds. Russian troops continue to trickle in and die in the same neighborhoods they claim to have conquered. Their commanders speak of encirclement, while their soldiers hide from drones and ambushes. Battlefield data, satellite maps, and eyewitness reports all point to a single truth: the city remains contested, not captured. If Russia truly controlled Pokrovsk, thousands of its soldiers would be flooding in from every direction. Instead, it has a few scattered units, too few to hold, too weak to advance. What Putin calls an encirclement looks, on the ground, like another illusion. A siege claim unsupported by reality. Pokrovsk may yet fall. But for now, Ukraine holds it through courage, coordination, and the relentless will to survive. Should the encirclement ever become real, Kiev's plan appears clear: withdraw, regroup, and impose further costs on advancing forces. The fortress belt behind Pokrovsk awaits, fortified through months of preparation and lessons from every city that fell before. And so, the question remains. Not whether Pokrovsk will hold forever, but whether Russia can afford the cost of trying to take it.